What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again. In my original review for Black Armory, I said that I would revisit the review when what people believe to be a dungeon, Niobe Labs, was released. Well, Niobe Labs is come and gone, except it wasn't a dungeon. It was a poorly designed, literally broken puzzle room. Now, I've lambasted Bungie for some shitty content in the past. We've talked about a lot of legitimate issues, we've talked about time-gated content, we've talked about poor management which led to reboot after reboot, we've talked about bad lore and retcons. But this, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, this puzzle room shipping incomplete, that fucking takes the cake. I mean, how do you do that? So for those of you who do not know, Niobe Labs was a leaked piece of content that a large portion of the Destiny community believed would be Shattered Throne 2.0. Turns out, it was nothing more than a puzzle room, which in and of itself isn't horrible. The community likes puzzles, and it brought the community together like puzzles tend to do. Now, credit where credit is due. When the puzzle room actually worked, when the ciphers were actually available in-game, it was really cool. However, as the puzzle dragged on and on and on and on, it was less about solving riddles and more about standing in random spots, shooting random images in the hope that something was going to work. This is not good game design. This by no stretch of the imagination is good game design. But what made this even worse was that part of the puzzle wasn't even in the fucking game. To quote Bungie, Niobe Labs has brought together some of the most brilliant minds in the Destiny community in order to try to solve the puzzle. Unfortunately, a string on level 7 was improperly removed, which would have provided information. In lieu of the missing piece of information, we are providing the clue below to help players on their quest to complete Niobe Labs once and for all. This is categorically unacceptable. Black Armory doesn't have a lot of fucking content. I don't know if you've noticed. The forges are all repetitive ball throw mechanics that have been in the game since Warmind, just reskinned. The raid, dare I say raid lair, is closer to a dungeon than a raid, and Niobe Labs was neither a dungeon nor functional, wasting the time of the dedicated player base that sought to crack it. And for what? Because nobody could be bothered to playtest the event before it went live? Nobody bothered to go in and make sure that everything was ready for release? We've talked about issues that Destiny has suffered before in the past, but nothing before was quite so stupid and short-sighted. It's not like they had to go back and test the entire DLC for stability or functionality or any of that other nonsense. This literally would have been somebody going in and checking to make sure all the ciphers and cues popped up when they were supposed to before releasing it. And clearly, nobody did that. Nobody did any testing of any kind, or this would have been caught and it wouldn't have been shipped. And it's not like Bungie didn't have the time to go back and test to make sure every part of their time-gated event worked. The DLC came out on December 4th, and Niobe Labs released on January 8th, just over a month later. Now, of course, there is this conspiracy theory that members of the community have come up with because they hate YouTubers and they hate streamers, and they believe that Bungie can't be wrong. They can't possibly have fucked up. So they're lying. They're lying to save face with the YouTubers and streamers. Because we can't have all the streamers and YouTubers looking stupid because it took 81 hours to solve a puzzle. This is quite possibly the stupidest line of reasoning I have ever seen come out of the Destiny community. But I guess common sense isn't so common after all. Why would Bungie, a game developer, admit to being utterly incompetent when it comes to designing and testing games? The entire purpose of their multi-million, if not billion-dollar company is design games. Why would you admit to not being able to competently do the one thing your company is all about? Just to save face with some YouTubers and streamers? What? What? That's fucking stupid. On top of that, they later provide the missing cipher. They don't just tell people how to beat it. And to anyone with a working frontal cortex, it makes sense that they just left something out, that they didn't ship it completely. Because it doesn't make sense to walk into a puzzle room to try to solve a puzzle and you don't have the ability to solve the puzzle, so you're just shooting random shit in the dark hoping something works. That's not a puzzle. That's bad game design. Bungie didn't have to admit to poor testing and blatant incompetence on their end. They could have just said, okay community, here's a hint, and moved forward. Admitting incompetence and poor testing and poor designing actively damages their brand when their entire point is to do all of those things and execute them well. Giving people a hint wouldn't have hurt their brand at all. Yes, you would have had a YouTuber here or there gripe and grumble, but it wouldn't have been Bungie going, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. Would you rather people say you didn't know what you're doing? Or would you rather people say, it was just a really overly designed puzzle? But apologist will be apologist. I've also seen apologists comment to the effect of, well, the puzzle was designed all along to be solved by the community at large, not one fire team's worth of knowledge. This is somehow conflated as a justification to excuse poor testing. Again, this is fucking stupid. The excuse, I think, is supposed to be, well, it would have been really hard to playtest because you're supposed to have the entire community test it, or play it, or whatever, to solve the puzzle. What? That is fucking stupid. You want to know how you play this? Let me demonstrate it for you. Here we have Exhibit A. You take your sniper, you take your bow, you take your machine gun, and a checklist, and you go from decal to decal, making sure every one of them's in place. I know! Novel concept! And then, maybe, just maybe, you do a dry run to make sure everything goes as according to plan. I mean, look! Look how easy this is! And if you go to a wall that's supposed to have one, and it doesn't, well, guess what? It's broken. That's how you test it. I know, mind blown, right? And if you shoot something or go stand in some place and shoot another thing and something's supposed to happen, but it doesn't happen, gasp, shock, horror, lightning crackle, lightning crackle, lightning crackle. It's broken. Sorry if I'm disturbing anyone here with some basic fucking logic. Comments like this act as if no one at Bungie knew how this was supposed to work. Like this content spontaneously generated itself into existence. Give me a fucking break. Bungie fucked up. They admitted they fucked up. They couldn't be bothered to properly test this content before shipping it. That's all it boils down to. Because had they properly tested it, they would have noticed that a cipher key to finishing the puzzle was missing. The link that members of this community have to go to say, no, Bungie's not the one that fucked up, it must have been the community, or something else. It couldn't have been Bungie, no, not Bungie. The links that these people have to go to just not go, okay, you know what, Bungie fucked up, and hold them accountable for it, is insane. These people literally seem like they're part of a fucking cult. So you got these fanboys sitting there just excusing every little fucking thing that happens, and we wonder why we get lackluster content release after lackluster content release? Well, there you go. That's why. And here's the thing. We know that when people hold Bungie accountable for the lackluster content, we get really cool stuff. Look at Forsaken. To move back to the content itself, Bungie fucked up. Not only did they fuck up, but they let people beat their head against the wall for days before somebody at Bungie could be bothered to saunter over to a console, any number of consoles or computers and builds of the game, sit their happy ass down, and take 5 seconds to make sure everything was working as intended. You know, when they noticed that people in the community were trying to brute force their way through the puzzle instead of solving a cipher. And to talk about the puzzle room in and of itself, the moment that the puzzle went from trying to figure out ciphers and morphed into an association game with too many variables, then devolved into people just trying to brute force their way with trial and error, was the moment that Bungie as a developer failed in creating a puzzle. This puzzle was a broken, overindulgent mess. It was somebody's development darling that should have been killed off the moment it became overly convoluted, and that time and effort spent elsewhere, like making the forges interesting. But you want to know what the best part of this is? How arbitrary this puzzle is from a story standpoint. So let me make sure I understand what's going on here. The original intent was for the community to come together and solve a puzzle to open this door to get to the final forge. A forge that has no ceiling. and is completely and utterly open to the sky. So we literally could have just flown in there. You fucking what, mate? Black Armory just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And looking at the stats for the last word, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. But hey, fuck it. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. And like always, stay frosty.